this training simultaneously does two incredible things. Number one, it teaches you how to correctly promote your YouTube content on other social platforms and, as a result, grow your YouTube audience. But secondly, it also teaches you how to grow a following on other social platforms so you can sell more and have a stronger brand. And the best part is, both of those things can be done pretty easily without much extra work at all. And yet most people completely overlook this promotion strategy. So let's get into it. And let's start by acknowledging that most people just upload a YouTube video and then that's it. When actually you could be getting so much more out of your YouTube content by repurposing it for other social platforms. Because you've already got the content. Think of YouTube as your main content. But then you can extract smaller pieces of content from that YouTube video and post those on the other social platforms. For example, cutting 30 seconds out of a 10-minute YouTube video and posting that 30-second clip as an original piece of content on Instagram, let's say. In fact, one 10-minute YouTube video could very easily lead to 5 mini clips that you cut out of it. 5 segments of the video where you're making a specific point or you're telling a short story, you're saying a great quote, anything like that. You can just cut it out of the main video and have a new piece of content. But then what if you posted each of those 5 clips you extract on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, and LinkedIn? That one YouTube video has suddenly just given you 25 additional posts, 25 extra chances for people to see your message. Now, you might be thinking, why even bother with the other social platforms? Aren't we trying to grow a YouTube channel here? And yes, YouTube should be your priority for all the reasons we've discussed throughout this course, like content being searchable, exponential growth, long-form content that allows you to build stronger connections and include more links and calls to actions. The list is endless of why YouTube has the most business potential. But that doesn't mean we should totally neglect the other social platforms and the opportunity of reaching a wider audience. Prioritizing YouTube makes sense, but diversifying a little so you're not reliant on one single platform is always a smart idea, especially when you can just repurpose your existing YouTube content for those other platforms as we just discussed. Because it's win-win. This strategy is going to help you grow your YouTube audience because we can promote your videos on these other platforms, but at the same time, you can build another audience on all these other platforms as well. So your brand becomes more widely known and has even more credibility. Now, when I say social media platforms, aside from YouTube, there's really 5 big ones right now. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. And making a profile on each, ideally with the exact same username and exact same profile picture on all of them, is definitely worthwhile, even if all you do is use them to share links to your YouTube videos. But to truly get the maximum promotion benefits and to really start growing a following on these other platforms, we want to be a bit more strategic than that, which is what this training is really about, dominating on other social platforms so you can promote your YouTube videos to more people and grow a following on other platforms too, so you can eventually sell more products and services and have an even bigger impact on the world. So let's go through a much better social media strategy that will allow you to do that. Firstly, let's just stress here that the goal of every social media platform is to keep people on their platform. Platform A, let's say it's Facebook, doesn't like you trying to send people to platform B. Let's say that's YouTube. So if you just dump your YouTube links in a post, the algorithm is not going to promote it as heavily, and you'll get less views as a result and less interaction from people. This is the mistake most people make when they're promoting their videos though. Plus, to make matters worse, users tend to prefer staying on the platform they're on as well. So if you're scrolling through platform A, you've clearly chosen to be there. So a random link is not going to really persuade you to go to another platform. So after a lot of testing, I found a much better way of doing this is to cut out 15 to 60 seconds of your YouTube video and ideally pick a really interesting, engaging or intriguing part of the video. And just cut these parts out in your editing software and save them as new separate video files. And then for platforms like Instagram and TikTok, you can just upload that clip to the new platform as a native video, and that way the algorithm is going to be much more likely to promote it. However, in the caption or at the end of the video, you can say something like, for the full video, click the link in my bio, and obviously set your bio link to your YouTube channel. So although it's a new piece of content, essentially, it's still linking back to the main content on YouTube, which is your main platform. Because if you've hooked someone in with a teaser video, they're much more likely to click on the link and go check out the full thing, especially if the teaser video leaves kind of a question or topic a little bit unanswered and you've created that curiosity where they want to go and watch the whole thing. But then for platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, what I just described works as well. You can natively post a short segment of the video, except with those platforms, you can also include a direct link in the post, or better yet, in the comments. And you can say in the post, link to the full video is in the comments below. And that, again, it's just meaning that your YouTube link isn't in the actual post, so it's going to mean the algorithm probably promotes it a little bit more. However, for those three platforms I've just mentioned where you can include links, which are Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, I found something that works even more effectively sometimes. And that is that you upload the thumbnail of your video as an image to these platforms. And you write a text post briefly selling the video. Hook them in with something interesting and unique in the first line. Because obviously with all of these platforms, people are scrolling through them, unlike YouTube where you're going in with the intent to stay on one specific post. And then at the end of those few lines where you've kind of sold the video and got people interested in it, you just say, link in the comments below for the full video. And you comment your YouTube link in the comments to the full video. So once again, you're not just sharing your video, you're creating an original piece of content, which in this case is your captivating thumbnail along with some lines of text about the topic of the video. But as well as being a native post for that platform, which can help attract people to follow you on that platform, it's also going to help your YouTube channel grow because you're going to be saying, for the full video, click the link below. Another great way to avoid the impression that you're just link dumping is to tailor each post you make to the specific social media platform you're on. An extremely simple but surprisingly effective way of doing this is to mention the platform that you're about to post on. So, for example, start in the post with something like, "Hey Twitter," if you're making a tweet on Twitter, because it just makes it feel like it was meant for that specific platform, and so it's a bit more genuine. It's also worth bearing in mind that different clips from your YouTube video will do a little bit better in different places. For example, TikTok is much more geared towards very short, fun content and regarded as less serious than somewhere like LinkedIn. Remember though, if it's a 10-minute YouTube video or longer, you should easily be able to get multiple mini clips from it. And then you can schedule those clips so they're spread out over the next few weeks or even months. So if you just look up a social media scheduler, you'll find plenty of options. Personally, I've used Hootsuite in the past because it has a free version you can get started with. And it just means you can block out a chunk of time and schedule lots of social media posts all at once, which is much more efficient and means you can space the posts out more evenly. So you don't have to remember to go and manually upload each new social media post throughout the day. You can just schedule them all at once. But now let's talk a little bit more about actually growing on these other platforms. With Facebook and Instagram, they're now at maturity, and organic growth is much more difficult. Whereas platforms like LinkedIn and TikTok will typically push your videos and your posts to a much wider audience, even if you're fairly new to the platform and don't yet have a big audience. That's because the amount of people consuming content on these platforms is a lot higher than the amount of people creating content. Whereas with Facebook and Instagram, they're much more saturated. Pretty much everyone with a business is on those too and creating content for them. So it won't always stay this way with LinkedIn and TikTok. I'm sure it's going to get harder to get such great organic reach with your posts. But that means now is the time to capitalize on it. And I've seen accounts on TikTok in particular get thousands of views on their first post. I myself had one of my early videos on TikTok get over 30,000 views just from cutting out 30 seconds of a random YouTube video I'd made, even though I had no actual following on TikTok at the time. Another useful tip is that when you're making a new post on any of these platforms, it's always worth finding some relevant hashtags to include in your post and using different hashtags in different posts rather than always sticking with the same ones. And you can look at what successful creators on the platform in your niche are using, what hashtags they're using, and just copy some of those and experiment to see which ones work best for you. Another great way of growing on any of the platforms is to follow your ideal audience, as quite often they'll then check out your profile in return, which will lead them to your YouTube channel. Again, make sure your YouTube channel is clearly linked in your bio and any calls to actions you make in your posts, so people are always being directed back to your main platform. Better yet though, as well as just following people on these platforms, you want to engage with their posts, like and reply to them with a genuinely thoughtful comment. And yes, obviously this is kind of like a micro strategy of interacting with people one at a time. But spending the extra time to do that can really help attract your ideal clients who could end up paying you very high prices. So don't lose sight of that. You only need an interaction with one or two people who really need your products and services for this strategy to be very worthwhile and profitable. So you've got to remember, we're not just getting viewers for your channel here, we're getting potential clients and customers. And if you're struggling to find the right people to follow and engage with, something you can do is steal your audience by going to your competitors' profiles and interacting with their most engaged fans. As there's a very high chance if someone's following their content, they're gonna become a fan of your content once they find it. It's just they don't know about you yet. But I'm gonna give you another tip for growing on all of these platforms that's very widely used but slightly controversial, and that is engagement pods. These are communities you join where you agree to like and engage on each other's posts, especially right after they're posted. Because what happens then is the algorithm promotes them more heavily because they get all of these likes and comments in the first 20 minutes. Some people just set these up with their friends. However, LinkedIn in particular, these pods are very prominent and they're not outright banned, by the way. It's just a gray area. And so there's actually an extension called Lempod, which automates the whole process. So it's automatically going to like people's posts on your behalf and vice versa. When you submit a post, you can have it so other people in the pod automatically like it. So you're getting all these guaranteed likes. You can even set up certain comments you want people to make on your posts and it will automatically make them from their account. Now, Lempod do charge $5 per month for this service, $5 per month per pod. And should clarify, I have no affiliation with them at all. I'm just saying this to give you all the secrets that are out there so that you can decide which you want to use and which you don't. You absolutely don't need to use pods. In fact, if you do, I'd recommend not going overboard with them because you want to develop real engagement, of course. But that's part of the reason I'm mentioning these, because although it may bring you automated likes initially from real people who just artificially like the post because they're all in the pod together, the thing is that can then lead to the post getting lots of real engagement because the algorithm pushes the post more and people see the social proof, so they're more inclined to engage with it themselves. Again, don't go overboard with pods, but it's worth knowing all these tricks the top influencers are using because that just kind of levels the playing field a bit. So you can look into these as options if you want a bit of a boost on your posts, because it does mean that you tend to get more real engagement then because the algorithm favors your post more. But again, just to clarify, you don't have to use those. There's plenty of other tips in this training that will get you lots of traction on these other platforms too. However, also bear in mind that most of the YouTube lessons we've covered throughout this course apply with all these other social media platforms as well. Things like infotainment, that still works very well. The algorithms still care about retention rates, click-through rate, and engagement. Those metrics still matter. And a lot of the platforms work in very similar ways. So now that you understand all of these YouTube strategies and what works well for YouTube content, you pretty much understand content for all of these social platforms because it's the same principles most of the time. Having said that, I know TikTok in particular is a platform that some people have doubts and confusion about, so I'll just add a couple of extra pointers for that platform since it's the newest of the big 5. And tip number 1 for TikTok is that before you even post on it, just use it for 10 minutes and you'll get a flavor of the app and the type of content that's doing well. And you'll see that jumping on trends in particular seems like an easy way to get a lot of attention on your posts. So make sure to check what's trending and what hashtags are most popular right now so you can use them. This is one of the big differences with something like YouTube, where we're more looking for evergreen content. With TikTok, because the content doesn't have such a long lifespan normally, we may as well jump on these trends instead. And also, you'll notice when you're using this platform that it's definitely geared towards a younger crowd, but I would say that is expanding, especially as more entrepreneurs and marketers start utilizing it. A second tip is that whilst you can't have links in your TikTok post, they specifically allow you to add a YouTube channel to your profile, along with a couple of other social platforms and a bio link. So you should be definitely using these, giving calls to actions at the end of your TikTok posts to go and check out your YouTube channel, which is linked in your bio. A third tip is that audience retention is really key. So going for shorter videos is often better, especially one with a bit of intrigue at the start, so they get hooked into watching the whole thing. In fact, if you can include something that appears very quickly, so they kind of miss it, like it flashes up, that'll help as well, because then they'll end up having to rewatch the post to see what that little bit of text said. So again, that's just going to send all the right signals to the algorithm if they're watching the post multiple times. And a fourth and final tip is that you can use copyrighted music on TikTok. In fact, it's actually built into the app. So since content on TikTok is often quite short and silly, you may want to experiment with making a few original videos as well as repurposing your YouTube content here. And even though I wouldn't spend long making original content for any of these platforms, given there's a reasonable chance you can have a viral hit with TikTok, at least on a small scale, I'd say creating a few quick videos for TikTok alongside your YouTube content could be worthwhile if you want to and you're going after a younger audience. For example, you could include some short behind-the-scenes clips or something like that. But those are the main 5 right now. But further down the line, there's bound to be some newer social platforms. So what about those? My view is that it's worth dipping your toe in the water and getting that early adopter advantage. Because if you get in early enough with the next Facebook, you could build an audience really quickly before other creators start to know about the platform, which would put you in a great position. You'd build up a following and an audience much easier because there'd be less competition. And so when everyone else moves over, you'll be in a position to win. This is something Gary Vaynerchuk does very well, testing the waters with lots of new platforms, knowing that if one of them takes off, like TikTok did, he's in a great position. Of course, any new social platforms should just be a tiny fraction of your focus and just another place to share the clips you've already made for YouTube. I'm not saying go and spend hours creating new content for all these unproven platforms that pop up, but hedging your bets with a few of these newer platforms you hear about could pay off. So it's worth just posting the clips you take from your YouTube videos on these other places as well if you see one that's up and coming and you think it has potential. However, one final promotion tip I want to share with you is something that won't be applicable to everyone, but for certain channels could be a game changer. And that is to repurpose your YouTube content for podcasts as well. Because if your video still makes sense without the visuals, then you may as well upload the audio version to all the main podcast platforms and sites like SoundCloud. As always, you just want to upload it with a very searchable title and description so that more people can actually find it. And you always want to include a link back or a call to action to check out your YouTube channel. So once again, just like we were talking about earlier, we're posting the content we've already made in other places and funneling users from all these other sites and platforms back to our YouTube channel and reaching a much wider audience as a result. Please, though, always think of these other platforms as business media, not social media. You're a creator, not a consumer now. Use these platforms for the sole intention of posting content and engaging with potential clients and fans, as it's really easy to get sucked into that endless scroll cycle otherwise, which definitely isn't going to help your channel or business. So, to wrap up, whilst YouTube is great as pretty much everyone uses it, there are definitely some of your ideal clients that hang around on other platforms more. For example, like we said, a younger audience on TikTok, maybe an older audience will be more on Facebook, and a more professional audience likely on LinkedIn. So, it depends who you're trying to reach, but since this social media strategy is actually very quick and easy to do, in my opinion, it just makes sense to do it for all the main platforms. After you post a new YouTube video, there isn't really anything to lose by extracting a couple of clips from it and posting them on all these other places in the way we described earlier in the training. It's not like you're even having to spend time creating or thinking of any new content because you're repurposing those existing videos you've already made. And remember, the principles we've discussed that lead to great content for YouTube apply with these other social platforms. So you already have engaging and interesting content to post. And really, at worst, this will help some extra people find your videos and channel, but at best, you may really start to blow up on one of these other platforms, which will rapidly grow your brand and lead to a lot more clients. Of course, don't let this training distract you from the fact that YouTube is going to be your main focus, because it's much easier to build a large following by primarily focusing on one platform and becoming an expert at it, rather than equally dividing your attention between loads of platforms and just being average at all of them. However, like I said, if you already have this content for YouTube, it's a no-brainer to repurpose it for a lot of other social platforms so you can grow a following on them and consequently bring more people to your YouTube channel as well. Because soon, when you post a new YouTube video, you'll be able to promote it to your audiences on all these other platforms right after posting it, which will lead to a big influx of targeted views in the first 24 hours, which YouTube is going to love. I've seen channels really take off from using these strategies, and I have no doubt yours can too.